Hey guys, what's up and welcome back. So, How I Met Your Father. It is a spin-off of, well, sort of How I Met Your Mother. So, How I Met Your Mother was a show that started in '05, I believe, went until like 2000, God, maybe 13 or 14, somewhere in that ballpark. Um, but How I Met Your Mother was the story of Ted, how he tried to find love in New York City, and he was telling the story to his two kids of how he met their mother. So, How I Met Your Mother is now the story of Sophie, and she is telling it to her son of how she met his father. So, in How I Met Your Mother, you had Ted, Robin, Lily, Marshall, and Barney. Those were the main five, with some variation of characters between different girlfriends, different boyfriends, just different people that were on and off the show. They just got interchanged. As you can see here, that's 6 people. So there's a number discrepancy right there. And there's 2 more characters that aren't shown in this picture. That's going to be a fiance and a boyfriend. So we'll go through these characters here and we'll see if we can match them up to anybody. So first, these 6 characters. These are the main 6 that we're introduced to. Going from left to right is going to be Jesse, Valentina, Charlie, Sophie, Ellen, and Sid. So Sid's fiance Hannah is not in this picture. Charlie's boyfriend Drew is not in this picture. So right there you have 8 characters that we have been introduced to on, I would say, a big basis. Now there is a character that went on a Tinder date with Sophie, and then he had to reveal that while he was, yes, in Australia, and it was only supposed to be a temporary thing, he got offered a full-time job. He only came back to New York City for a couple days to gather his belongings, sublet his apartment, do different things he needed to do while he was, in New York City until he goes to Australia to go have that job. So let's see if we can equate some of these characters. So I'd like to equate Ted to Sophie, just by the pure fact that they're the ones telling the story. They are. Then I would probably say Sid and Hannah are Marshall and Lily, but Hannah is Marshall, Sid is Lily. So in the first episode of How I Met Your Mother, Marshall and Lily get engaged. In the first episode of How I Met Your Father, Sid and Hannah get engaged. Sid is a bartender, not just a bartender, he owns a bar. And he was in medical school, and he was studying to be a doctor. I don't know if there was a specific kind of doctor, but he's studying to be a doctor. Went to the bar every now and then. Just, he liked the guy that owned it. And the guy that owned it was old. So he passed away. Sid then decided, I'm buying the bar. I'm going to quit medical school. I'm going to go buy this bar. So then you have Hannah, who is still in medical school, I believe. Or has graduated medical school. But she's actually, pretty much a doctor. She actually has patients. So that's where I'm going to say Marshall, who was in law school, actually became a lawyer. He's Hannah in that perspective. Lily, who, yeah, you're a teacher, but you wanted to be an artist, or she dreamed of being an artist. He was gonna be a doctor too. And he's like, you know what? I'm buying the bar. So some people could say, well, shouldn't he be God, who was the bartender in How I Met Your Mother? Give me a second. Carl. So you could argue. Shouldn't he be Carl? Because Carl, he was the guy at the bar. But that would be their only commonality. I would say he's more of a Lily since he's in this group of friends. So we have marked off Ted. We have marked off Marshall. We have marked off Lily. So right now we are just left with Robin and Barney. So I'm going to say Barney is Ellen. So one thing about Ellen is she is a lesbian. So she is Jesse's sister, but not by obviously not by blood. She was adopted. You could say that's similar to Barney and his brother James. So Barney's white, James is black. Their mom slept with two different guys, obviously. So these two people being of different races, that kind of ties into that. So if you want to put James as Jesse, I guess you could, but it's like, yeah, but James was gay, so couldn't you, gay and gay, but I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to have James. Because James wasn't enough of a character in How I Met Your Mother to be, I think, named. So, Ellen, she hit on a lot of different girls at a bar. I mean, a lot of different girls. And she, was recently divorced. And I know Barney had that one serious girlfriend, but I don't think he ever got divorced. But he would always hit on women and and then sleep with them and not call them back. So I'm gonna say Ellen is a Barney. If anyone wants to say no, she should be James because James was gay and she's gay, and you can argue that if you want. But Jesse just does not seem like a Barney to me. So, the only character we have left now is Robin. Now, Robin was a Canadian reporter. And she was the one person Ted was like, oh my god, I love you. So you could say, well, she's Canadian, so she was, a foreigner. And Charlie, he's British, he's a foreigner, so should those two be put together? I don't think so. I do not think so. I think Robin is Jesse. Here's why I say that. I'm going to say that because I think Jesse likes Sophie. I think Sophie probably likes Jesse. Sophie is currently seeing Drew. So, while Ted saw different women and Robin saw different guys, I think they have a good chance at ending up together. So I would say that Jesse is Robin. So Valentina, she is Sophie's roommate. So let me think. Charlie initially was living with them, but then moved in with Ellen. So it's you know. Could you find someone to assign them to? Absolutely. Yes, you could. If and even Drew doesn't really have a placement right now. Drew could be like Victoria. Um, Valentina. Let me think. a good friend of Ted, I would say Valentina. One of Valentina's Punchy. You know, a good friend of Ted. That. But she's a bigger character than Punchy, you know? She would have to be a character like. She'd have to be like. God. I can't equate anything to her. Or Charlie, you know? I just don't have anything that equates them to a character of their roles. You know, because I gave Drew Victoria. And Victoria, while she, you know, wasn't around all the time, she was still probably a pretty big character in How I Met Your Mother. You know, that one really serious girlfriend Ted had, and, you know, they probably shouldn't have broken up. Ted's fault. So that is the best I can do for equating the characters of How I Met Your Father to the characters of How I Met Your Mother. So, if you guys did enjoy this, please give a like in the channel, please hit the subscribe button, turn notifications on. See all you guys next video. Later.
Once I was 7 years old, Mama told me, go make yourself some friends or you'll be lonely. Once I was 7 years old.